Hello, my friends. Welcome to EdTech with Adam. I'm extremely happy to have here today the wonderful Vijay Ravindran from Floreo. As you know, last week we started up this amazing series on virtual reality approaches to autism, and we talked a little bit about how autism is being treated and how people with autism are being educated in ways that they can improve their abilities, they can become more valuable in the workforce. We know that only 13% of people with autism are being employed, which is very unfortunate. So this is something that we have a lot of people working to improve here, and of course, a great tool here with Floreo. And please introduce yourself, Vijay.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Adam, for having me on. My name is Vijay Ravindran, and I'm the CEO and founder of Floreo. Floreo is a technology company that has a product on the market today that is sold to uh, autism therapy clinics, special education programs in schools, and directly to parents to enable the use of virtual reality to help their child learn social and behavioral skills. And so, to share a little bit about the origin of the company, we're about 4 years old, and I had a technology background prior. I was an early engineer at Amazon, and most recently at the Washington Post. And I had an aha moment when my son tried out virtual reality for the first time. He was 6 years old at the time, and he tried out some Google Street View related virtual reality, and it sparked an ability to start pretend play for the first time, which we had never seen before. And so that ended up being this wow, this could be really cool technology to reach kids like him and potentially create a more engaging, immersive environment for teaching social and behavioral skills. And so went to work in 2016 on this idea, started working with some talented folks, including a neurodevelopmental pediatrician and a clinical therapist. And we went about designing a system to basically create scenes in VR that would also spur social and behavioral development. And so over the course of the last 4 years, we've really prioritized research. So we've had one successful study at a special needs school in 2017 that allowed us to see 12 kids go through 5 weeks of intervention and be able to get a get an idea of not only are they willing to wear the headset and go through 5 weeks of therapy essentially, but also could we measure that they picked up new skills. And so we're proud to say that we saw clear quantified progress in the kids, in 10 of the 12 kids that participated, and we were able to publish the results in a medical journal called JMIR Pediatrics and Parenting.
Mhm.
Separately, we are also the recipient of a $1.7 million National Institutes of Health small business grant that we share with Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And we're now in the third year of really the most expansive study of the intersection of virtual reality and autism. By the end of our study, over 150 participants will have gone through either the Floreo technology or a control group therapy with evaluation on how they've done. And so we're really proud of our emphasis on research up front. And so far the findings have really lined up with what parents, teachers, and therapists and kids say, which is that it's really fun to use Floreo. It is a very differentiated vehicle for learning skills.
Mhm. Oh, it's very cool. Yeah, and I really love the way that Florio has that real-time separate intervention piece where not only do you have the VR setup, but you also have someone else who's like either a parent or maybe a doctor or someone else who is there to really help people along with this process. I think that's very cool. And is that something that's very common? How did you come to that concept?
Yeah, no, when it's you see more some virtual reality healthcare applications starting to create those types of interfaces, but when we created it 4 years ago, it was definitely novel.
Hmm.
We It really came from my usage of VR with my son, where
Hmm.
he would put it on and be like, "This is really cool," and I'd have no idea what he's looking at, and so I couldn't share the experience with them. I couldn't
Hmm.
point out other things. I couldn't engage with them. And so
Hmm.
I knew that there was something needed there. At the time, there was, different ways that you could use wires to connect to a PC and potentially project the image. But
Hmm.
um, I think if you have a child with autism or work with children, you would know that wires are particularly impractical. Um, kids move around a lot. They're unpredictable movements, and so we have emphasized the use of it all being wireless and using mobile virtual reality to make it as easy as possible.
Hmm. And was it rather recently that everything was able to be completely wireless? Like I know up until recently they still had the wires coming out of the headset and stuff, but now you have the Oculus Quest and whatnot that are yeah free from that, right?
Yeah, great question. So as folks know, they're probably if they're experienced with virtual reality, there's two kind of classes of VR headsets on the market today. There's mobile-based virtual reality, which really started with smartphone-based VR, which is
Hmm.
the technology we continue to use, and these headset holders that can hold your smartphone and just rely on the sensors in your phone. And then there's high-end virtual reality, sometimes referred to as 6 degree of freedom virtual reality, which up until the Oculus Quest and the HTC Vive Focus was tethered to PCs.
Hmm.
Uh, there are a couple of models now on the market that don't require those tethers. They have more features, but they do cost more. The headsets themselves are heavier, which in this population is something you have to be mindful of because lots of kids with autism have low muscle tone, and that the weight of the headset ends up being a consideration because they don't have the neck strength potentially to
Hmm.
hold it up and be able to use it in comfort.
Speaking of equipment, I just wanted to bring up something that I learned before as well. Floreo also offers a plan where you can help people get access to equipment. I believe you have some different pricing plans, but one of them actually, so this is something that you do to actually help people get access to equipment that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get access to, right?
Yeah, so we really benefited from a number of pilot families and clinics and schools last year who started using Floreo. And one of the things we quickly learned is that equipment can be a real impediment for getting started. Even when our system works with an iPhone 7 or above to power the headset side, and then an iPad to power the coaching console. And even when people have equipment, they don't necessarily want to use it for this type of functions.
Hmm.
It's their primary phone. They don't want it to be in a headset with their child. The child might throw it across the room. Um, and so what we were able to do is we did an arrangement with Sprint Mobile where we're sourcing refurbished equipment, and we're able to
Hmm.
offer an all-in-one solution with equipment and software out of the box at a really affordable price. And so we use that relationship so that we can help people get started really fast.
Hmm.
And so we are able to offer a version where you get a box, and the box has Floreo pre-installed, and everything's ready to go. And you just take it out, you have everything you need, and you just get started.
Awesome. And this is available for both institutional usage and for individual usage?
It is. It is. The equipment offer is in the U.S. only,
Okay.
and so because of all the complexities around shipping technology.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so we today have customers that span special needs programs in public schools, private special needs schools, autism therapy clinics, clinics in the speech language pathology space, and then other social organizations that might be trying to deliver services to families. And then
Hmm.
we have a cohort of parents who have found us. We just concluded our first week of Camp Floreo, so
Hmm.
we had a program this summer where we had a 1 or 2 week camp, and we're planning to offer that camp again next month.
Hmm. Very cool. No, that sounds very awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, how about we dive right into it here and you can show us how some of this awesome program works?
Yeah, great. So happy to do that. So again, our system uses a iPhone 7 or above today.
Hmm.
So here I have a iPhone 8 Plus.
Hmm.
I'm bringing up the Floreo application. For families looking at this, the Floreo application is available in the iOS App Store. So if
Hmm.
you have an iPad or an iPhone, you can download the app and then contact us to talk about what you're planning to do and the appropriate pricing program for what you're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
I have the iPhone up, and I just will quickly just describe before I turn on the screen share to the iPad that this ends up creating the virtual reality image. It creates a left and right eye view for those unfamiliar with mobile VR. And then at that point, you can use this or many other headsets that are Google Cardboard compliant, which is a
Mm-hmm.
standard that we adhere to. And that allows you to place the phone into the headset, close it, and at that point, you can put it in there. And then the child is looking through these lenses.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're able to see in 3D. And then as they're moving their head around, the sensors in the phone are giving the input so that the image updates so that you get the sense of being immersed in the space you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to turn on screen share in a second. So as we mentioned earlier, what's unique about the Floreo system is that we've also designed a coaching console that pairs with this virtual reality experience so that as the child or adult with autism is going through a particular lesson, the supervising adult is able to see what they're seeing and be able to do certain activities to essentially make it effective. And so we'll go
Mm-hmm.
through some of those examples in a moment. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to turn on screen share. And so you should see a screen now that shows recommended programs for Amy and new lessons and recently played. So in the Floreo system, we have user accounts for adults, and then we also have learner profiles. And so a user account can have multiple learner profiles if they're using this institutionally. And for schools and clinics looking to license Floreo, one set of hardware can be used with a number of children. So
Mm-hmm.
you just need to know that you can only use it with one child at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have customers today that are using it with multiple children. And then when they need to expand into, say, different physical clinics,
Mm-hmm.
or they're getting to a place where they're going to concurrently use Floreo with multiple kids because multiple therapists are using it, then you might need more than one system.
Of course, yeah.
And so I'll just going to give you a walkthrough
Mm-hmm.
of a few different styles of lessons in the Floreo system today. I'm going to start with building social connections.
Mm-hmm.
This is our term for building block skills. So you can think of baseline areas of intervention as key here. So eye contact, imitation, gestures, kind of the bread and butter of early intervention when you're thinking of someone with a recent diagnosis and the types of things you might want to work on,
Mm-hmm.
or the types of skills that you might continue to work on in the later years for those who have more profound impact of their autism. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to go into the eye contact safari and we're going to start a lesson. And what's going to happen when I press the play button is that the lesson, the iPad is going to start talking to the iPhone over the network.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's really powerful about the Floreo system is that the iPad and the iPhone that powers the headset do not have to be in the same room or same Wi-Fi network. So
Mm-hmm.
Floreo supports telehealth or distance learning scenarios where a specialist or a therapist might want to be delivering Floreo to the home, which is especially true right now with what we're going
Oh
through.
yeah, definitely.
So we're starting, and what's happening right now is that the phone is moving into virtual reality mode. If
Mm-hmm.
you can see my little window, it's going to flip over in a second. And so now it's in the left eye, right eye view.
Mm-hmm.
And the iPad view is going to update in a second. And we're gonna start streaming between the two devices.
Mm-hmm.
The top half of the screen is a mirrored view of what the child is seeing in the VR headset. And the green bars represent the field of view of the child. So we flatten a wider 180 view to help the adults potentially assist the child going through the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
We see lots of cases where hand-over-hand techniques can be used if this is in-person intervention to help the child. And I'm going to just gently pan around for a moment so you can kind of see that we're in a safari park. There's a few animals laid out. And then one of our characters, whose name is Emma, who you'll see in later lessons more active, in this one, she just has a passive role.
Mm-hmm.
The blue bar, which has the language on it, is only visible to the adult.
Mm-hmm.
And we use that blue bar to have sample lines of dialogue, because this could be a parent who needs help in how to prompt the child or how to recognize what's going on. We are able to give status updates there. And then the lower half of the screen is also where you'll see custom controls per lesson, where we might need to have the adult collect important data that we use for assessment and to be able to progress the scene forward,
Mm-hmm.
which might include them assessing the quality of the language they're using or the sign language if they're nonverbal, um, and and basically be able to conduct the scene. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to start this lesson. This one is really simple. It's actually the very first lesson we built.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen is each of the animals is going to make a sound. We're trying to build the instinct in the child to locate the animal, and they're going to get a reward. For those who are familiar with autism therapy, of course, rewards are a really important part of helping motivate and create that engagement with the child to work on a skill.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were doing this together, I might be like, Adam, who made that sound? Can you find the elephant?
Mm-hmm.
And then you look around gently, gently. And then you found the elephant. Good job. And you can see the reward animation. What's also happening behind the scenes is that we're calculating. Did it take you 2 seconds or 5 seconds to find the elephant? So we
Mm-hmm.
can set benchmarks, provide feedback on how things went.
Mm-hmm.
In a moment, a new task will start. Into the chimp. And so, again, if we're doing this together, be like, Adam, I think I hear a chimp. Can you find him? Great job. You did it. And so we found the chimp. We got the reward animation. We were able to get the data to record that we thought. And in a moment, the last task is going to fire, which is the parrot. And right on cue,
Mm-hmm.
and then reward. And so, really simple. We basically use the head direction of the child to interpolate where they're looking, and based off of that, be able to deliver the reward. And then we think it's very important also to be able to have these praise prompts delivered as well. Praise is such
Mm-hmm.
an important part of creating the motivation, and where possible to to use as really the only reward. In other cases, they might be part of a larger reward regime that's been put together for this particular child.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to do another lesson where you're going to see a little bit more interaction of controlling the character by the supervising adult. So we have our virtual therapist, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to work on this very important skill that's delayed very commonly in kids on the spectrum, which is that they don't recognize the significance of the pointing action and
Mm-hmm.
locate the animal that's being pointed at. So I'm going to press start to get going, and I'm going to choose to point at the giraffe. So she's going to point to our left, and we need to do this. Again, if I was doing a therapy session, I'd be like, Adam, who's she pointing at?
Mm-hmm.
And then Adam looks over. You're right, it was the giraffe. And then reward.
Mm-hmm.
Behind the scenes, again, data collection, praise language to Adam on doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's really powerful about virtual reality, when I think of contrasting it to apps or computer-based training, is that we know generally where you're looking. And that can also allow us to make the educational design of the lesson take that into account. So for instance, here, I'm not looking at Emma, and I'm about to press the point to parrot button. So she's going to point, and I would have no idea where she's pointing because I'm not looking. I'm
Mm-hmm.
distracted,
Mm-hmm.
which, as folks know, can happen a lot with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can see the message that we can tell our test child, Amy, to look at Emma. We can even animate Emma to get her attention. So she's waving. She's out of my field of view still on the headset, but we can see on the iPad that she's waving. I find her, and only then does she point. She's actually pointing over my shoulder. And so this is one of the things about virtual reality is we're using the full 360 space. And so I'm going to rotate around and see that there was a parrot hiding behind me the whole time. And so we can really provide surprises to the kid by using this full space. And when you think of like table time and how 2D everything is, especially now with Zoom being used for therapy lessons,
Mm-hmm.
VR really gives an immersive environment to do these types of actions.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen eye contact safari, and we have over 160 lessons now in the overall Floreo catalog, and we have a number of lessons that are in this area of early childhood skills around building connection. So imitation and gestures are two other areas. But I'm going to move forward to a class of lessons that we have under the moniker of teaching stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea here is to use virtual reality to help teach using simulation and immersive environments. And so we're going to go through a couple of peer interaction lessons where we can build some conversation. And so we're going to start with a really simple one, which is practicing our friendly greeting. And so this one is super basic. We have a child right next to us in our locker, and I'm just going to do a quick little pan so you can kind of see that we're in a school classroom hallway space.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to work on responding to this kid.
Hello.
So now we can just practice simple hellos. If you do the lesson again, he actually varies. So we create a lot of language dialogue variants so that you can run the lessons multiple times. And if we were doing it a second time, he might say, "What's up?" or "Hey, ya." So he has a number of different expressions, some more basic and some more, tween lingo. And so now we can practice. We can record what the quality of the response was if it didn't meet our satisfaction. Or if we thought it was a good response, we can hit good response.
See you in science.
And then we also can practice closure, that this is the end of the conversation. He's ready to leave. But it was a good interaction, and we should feel good about it. So you can imagine like these simple interactions can really set the tone about whether a child is able to make friends and lead to deeper social interaction. And then we can build on it. So hold on one second. There we go. Let's do this one. So now we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth. So you'll see, and this is one of the things that I think is really powerful at VR is that once you have the scene created, so again, same locker room, hallway, environment, we're going to start the lesson, but we can create lots of new lessons that work on these skills in a lot of different angles. And so this is our child, Brandon. He's going to start talking to us in a second.
Yo.
Yeah, you can see he said hi also, but differently. He said yo. And so we need to respond back. Hey, how's it going? And then we can say good response because we get a good one.
I like the two teacher we had in social studies.
And so if someone says that to you, what's a good way of keeping the conversation going? What's a good way to show that you're paying attention, that you actually care about what he said? And so we can practice. We provide guidance here for the adult if they need some help about different sample responses, different ways to talk about it. The data collection section appears if the child is struggling for some reason. You need to repeat it. And in this case, we're going to say we made a good response.
I just have a question. When you have that screen with the yellow responses and then you have the green, like they answered a good response, are those like either or are those in addition to, like the learner had said too much, but it's a good response? Or do you just click that one and that's it? Or
you click the one and that's it.
Okay.
So if they say too much, he'll give a slightly puzzled expression and then the scene will move forward.
Okay.
Depending on what is pushed, the character might respond in a context-sensitive way. So if they said nothing at all, the character might repeat what they said or said, "Hey, did you hear me?" So there are responses that are essentially triggered potentially off of those buttons.
Okay.
And those are essentially varied. So you can imagine that this is a giant decision tree that is basically playing out based on the input of the adult as the child goes. And looking long term, we're really excited about voice recognition technologies coming into the VR headset space, the opportunities to potentially have technology automate. This is a group where there's, in many cases, speech delay. So, automating some of this, we have to be very careful with. And so, but we like the design right now where the adult who does know this particular child and would know what a quality answer is from them can make the decision.
Yeah, it works very well for the high amount of variables that you get with the potential responses from the students, right?
Exactly. Like, so ultimately, you need, we're not replacing the adults that are in and around the lives of the individual who know where they are developmentally, what the next milestones are. we're giving them powerful tools to work on getting those developments going that they can employ and use. And so now I want to talk about how this last lesson is actually quite hard because characters are going to walk by and try to start quick conversations, and you have very little time to respond. And this really puts it all together, and one, shows how complicated the real world is, but also that this is an ultimate practice environment, and that we can simulate things that are hard to simulate otherwise. And so we're going to practice the small talk. We've hopefully gone through the other lessons, built up our skills. We're ready. And in a moment, a peer is going to start walking from one direction or the other. Oh, there he is. Hey.
Awesome. There's no extra homework today.
Love it. So you can imagine there's not a lot of time to react and respond to this immediate, comment that he made. That is kind of how it works if people are flying by you in the hallway or trying to say something that, you'd have to start coming up with some quick expressions to show engagement, interest, that you're listening. And so, these are very challenging, but that's the idea. That we can build up to that. So we have additional school lessons that I'm not going to show here, but they include cafeteria interactions, so who to sit next to, how to invite someone over, how to help create conversation, classroom situations, where to sit, the semantics of raising your hand, being called on or not being called on, don't blurt your answers out, tolerate other kids saying potentially the wrong answer. You can imagine there's a lot of different scenarios that kids on the spectrum can struggle with. And then one of our most recent sets of lessons around the difference between banter and bullying. And so here we actually help the child recognize the differences between gentle teasing versus, hey, you're being bullied, as well as strategies from how to handle bullying and de-escalate one way or another. So we're really proud of those lessons because they're really tackling an important subject area. The other aspect of teaching stories is around safety. And so we have a few different lessons there, and I'm going to show you one in a moment. One is how to navigate the airport, which hopefully all of us will be back traveling again soon.
Yes.
The other is how to cross the street. So when you think of VR and how it's powerful as a practice machine, I can talk to you theoretically about looking both ways before you cross the road, how to judge the speed of the cars, looking at the walk sign before you start walking. I guess I could take a child out to the road and just have them try it, but the cost of failure could be quite high if they end up messing it up. In VR, we can actually put you on the street, you can see the traffic, and you can basically work on it. I'm actually going to show you a set of lessons in our police encounters module. This is an area where obviously there's lots of concerns and fears in the community around, you spend all this energy helping a child get to a certain level of independence, but you don't have confidence that they can navigate an encounter with law enforcement. And, obviously this has been a lot in the news recently. These lessons themselves were inspired by a horrible incident that happened in North Miami back in 2016, where that culminated with the behavioral therapist being shot by the police, but thankfully surviving. And we actually worked with the local police department here in Montgomery County, Maryland, just outside of DC, to work on these first sets of lessons. These lessons are all part of also our fast track NIH grant, and so they're being studied extensively by Children's Hospital of Philadelphia through the funding by NIH. We're going to start with a really simple lesson. So we're going to find ourselves on the street corner of an urban landscape. We're minding our own business on the bench, and you can actually see in the distance a few officers are walking up. We're going to have a conversational encounter with the officers, and we're going to work on answering the types of questions that an officer would ask.
Hey there.
So the officer said, "Hey there." What is an appropriate way to respond? Maybe, "Hi, can I help you?" If the adult is satisfied with the answer, they can press the green button. If they want to reprompt the child, they can do that through any of the three orange buttons. We're going to press the green button.
Can I talk to you a sec?
So we use colloquialisms intentionally here. This is common in police speak and can be very confusing to our kids. So, sure.
What are you up to here?
Again, this can be very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Even neurotypical kids will say, I'm just sitting here. And that's not going to be good enough for a lot of police officers.
Mm-hmm.
I can reprompt the child through one of the orange buttons to have them work on a more fulsome answer. So now I can rehearse potential. I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up. I just finished school, was eating a snack. You can imagine there's a few different scenarios that you could work on, examples that could help give preparation so that if they're in the real moment, they can answer it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say we gave one of those better answers, and we're going to press the green button.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your name?
And elopement is a real big issue when you think about the autism community. So many kids run away and wander away from home, school, other places. And one of the things that has been surprising is how many kids do not know their name, their address, their phone number in a way that can be help. They can get help. And
Mm-hmm.
so what's your name? You can imagine, you can kind of rehearse the full name.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you live?
And work with your child on knowing their actual address
Mm-hmm.
so they get help from an authority figure.
Okay then. Thank you for your cooperation. Free to go.
In these level 1 lessons, you're always free to go. Everything ends peacefully. And in the later lessons, we essentially vary up daytime, nighttime. We have the African American officer sometimes the lead. We turn up the distractors of traffic, pedestrians. So all of this basically adds to kind of leveling up the child over time.
So it has tiered progress basically, so you can go from lower levels up to higher levels there.
Correct. And
Great.
we offer sequenced lesson plans that can be used by the professional if they want or the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then our multi-lesson goes a step further and allows some real configuration.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show a quick example of that. And this is the basis of the randomized clinical trial right now that we're in with Children's Hospital Philadelphia. So we're going to quickly configure this. So we're going to do a follow directions, medium. And this is an important one based on feedback where some kids might present as an adult to the police. And if that's the case, they're going to get very different treatment than if they're presented as a child. And so you can imagine that there, especially as you get into teenage years, there's lots of cases where the teenagers might be 6 feet and look like an adult to the police. But in this case, we're going to say minor. And we'll confirm it. So you'll notice some of the audio distractions.
Mm-hmm.
We're at nighttime. There's some pedestrians walking by. And we have them describe the scene, where they are. And now at some point, the police officers are going to arrive, and they're going to arrive from a few different directions. So see if we can find them. Up here they come.
How's everything going?
And now we're going to get into a conversation dialogue, somewhat similar to what you saw, that we've changed some of it for the new research. So we'll say we'll give a good response.
Can you tell me what's in your bag?
And here we actually work on what does it mean you have to open up your bag.
What's your name?
And here I want to give you an example of some of the more sophisticated work we're doing now. So we've actually recorded the voice dialogue in several different levels of agitation. So I'm going to give a poor response, and you'll hear her start asking over again.
What's your full name? Give me your first and last name.
And based on feedback from our first set of research with individuals on the spectrum, they really wanted to see consequences attached. And so in this particular lesson, I'm going to show you what happens if I give a poor response one more time.
I'm not messing around anymore. Maybe you will be more cooperative at the police station.
And then now you're in the back of the car, and for some kids, you need to explain what's going to happen if this happens. Not to panic. So I'm going to show you now shifting out of this. a couple of examples of our emotional regulation suite.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started in this space, we had a simple idea. Affluent schools today are spending lots of money on these calming rooms for anxiety, ADHD, and autism kids.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these calming rooms are out of reach for so many schools, and they're not out of reach for so many family homes and clinical centers. And so our simple idea is, can we use VR to create a calming room?
Mm-hmm.
So we've created some simple spaces like this one that can be used in an escape environment. What we've also found from real customer feedback is that sometimes these are also used as rewards. So this is just a really simple aquarium space. It's meant to allow someone to check out for a bit and come back. And then this one is a simple xylophone where the gaze can play the keys in the xylophone.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to give them some agency, let them feel that they're in control for a little bit. And then we've taken things one step further and worked on the idea that these immersive scenes can also be used as motivation to learn new skills that otherwise might be hard to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as many of us know, train stations and trains are very popular in this community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have our own train station, and we can start this lesson. We're going to locate the train. And now we can actually work with them on focusing on their breathing. So we're going to try to help them with breathing in and out and having them breathe in slowly and deeply. And hopefully they're doing this because they're going to get a big reward from the train at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and look, because you did such a good job breathing, you can start the train. And now the train is going around the track. It's going to do a few loops. Then it's going to park again. And if you do some more really good deep breathing, you'll get another reward and the train will do something cool. I'm going to leave you in suspense and not tell you what that is and stop right there.
Okay. Excellent. That was very cool. And so the train is also part of the calming activities there, right?
Yeah, so we also have the train station available in the calming activities
Mm-hmm.
without the deep breathing instructions.
Mm-hmm. And where did you come up with all of these calming environments, so the xylophone and the fish tank kind of thing? Where exactly did those ideas come from?
We have a really talented clinical team
Mm-hmm.
that includes the developmental pediatrician and clinical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
They identify the different developmental areas that we want to work on. We have a really talented art director who helps us then creatively visualize what that could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's a creative process where we're taking things that are innately therapy or meant to be training and then trying to make it fun and engaging
Mm-hmm.
so that we can hold the attention, that we can also design it in a way that it can be done repeatedly
Mm-hmm.
and still hold their attention, and then also be able to deliver and have an outcome that we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really cool that you have that entire staff there, and clearly everything is very well targeted. I feel like it really hits the goals that you're trying to reach for these autistic people, and that's great. One thing I'm really curious about is you're mentioning the kind of the data collection, and there's sort of there's a reporting interface as well. And how does that work?
Yeah, so we send reports based on student or child sessions
Mm-hmm.
to the administrative account, the adults that are working with them. And then we also have a web-based portal where you can go and manage your account, set up new learners, and be able to see some of the same underlying data. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're really excited about what's going to be possible with the data over time because there's real opportunities to optimize the lesson plan, be able to personalize the characters to be more effective, and really take advantage of the digital medium.
In the current state, is there a system that takes into account the reactions of the child or adult who are undergoing this program, And does it make any, because I noticed that you do have prompts for the intervention, but in terms of the reporting features, does it take all of the data and recommend maybe specific lessons or recommend certain things?
Yeah, our lesson plans have benchmarks or heuristics around
Hmm.
what success looks like.
Hmm.
And every time you run a card, there is a definition of success or need to keep practicing
Hmm.
built in, and then we use those to make recommendations on new sets of lesson plans that you can be using. It's really up to the adult whether to use those or just to plow right into the catalog directly. So,
Hmm.
some cases you have a school with an IEP for a child and there's very specific things they want to work on based on the IEP. Or you have a clinic that is using the ABA protocol and they have
Hmm.
very specific things they're trying to accomplish in their practice management. And so, in some cases, we're being used in as a tool and very atomically. In other cases, we're also the umbrella lesson plan and
Hmm.
trying to provide some of that assessment feedback.
Hmm. And is this feedback and is all of this data, is it delivered to the users through the interface or is it delivered by email or something?
It's by email and through the web portal today, and
Okay.
then coming soon will be in the iPad app as well. But remember, in some cases, uh, like if you have in an ABA construct, you'll have a BCBA evaluating the data, but the behavioral technician is the one actually delivering the lessons.
Hmm.
And so we recognize that, and so we've tried to decouple those so that because sometimes the decision maker on the treatment plan is not the one actually actively coaching through the
Hmm.
iPad.
Well, that's really cool. One thing that I heard talking, actually, I have some colleagues as well, of course, also the entire department here at my university that works with this, but we've been talking a lot about these kinds of tools, not only as education tools, but also as bonding tools, because I realize it's quite challenging for parents
Mm-hmm.
who are trying to like bond with their children with autism. And so, how have you heard any stories, or have you experienced anything in this effect?
Absolutely. I mean, I think parents enjoy because the kids get engaged and get excited, and the VR environment does allow them to focus. So, I mean, we've anecdotally heard things like, "I just had the longest conversation I've ever had with my child." We've had a military family use this and try to set up so that they can do to have the deployed father play the coaching role using the
Hmm.
telehealth capability. So there's some really amazing opportunities with how this tool can be used.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And something else I noticed is it seems you do have a very good focus on diversity within the program as well. I saw that you had like police officers of varying ethnicities and stuff like that. Uh, how is that? Is that a major thing for the development of Florio? Is that one of the main priorities there?
It's very important for us to reflect a diverse population and to create something that can work with a broad array of kids. We have a lot more work to do, honestly.
Hmm.
That there's a lot more opportunities to present not just ethnicity and gender, but also age groups and creating different types of interactions that vary in age. And then in our roadmap is absolutely language support and being able to go beyond English and beyond a U.S. centric environment and start broadening those.
Definitely. No, that's very cool. In terms of, you're mentioning that after some recent research, an emphasis on consequences
Yeah.
became very important. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, and how intense are the consequences, and what effect has that had so far on the program as a whole?
Yeah. So in the NIH funded research that Children's Hospital of Philadelphia has been conducting, the first year of the research was based off of the level one police interaction lessons that I showed, where everyone is free to go at the end, and it's a fairly mild interaction where there's no harshness to the officer's tone that's really discernible.
Hmm.
And the individuals on the spectrum who went through, there were about 60 individuals that went through the phase one. one of their pieces of feedback was that they wanted to understand a little bit more of the consequences if they weren't able to do a good job. That the whole concept of having an encounter with police can be quite abstract to the average child,
Mm-hmm.
even though it can feel very real to the families. And so, so we took that feedback to heart. And we were actually working at that point with the Philadelphia Police Department on the phase 2 research. And so we talked through a few different options. And the one we came up with is what you saw, where,
Mm-hmm.
if you fail to answer a question 3 times, the consequence is that you find yourself transported to the back of the police car.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically then create an environment where the coach can explain, this is what happened, this is why it happened, and that, what's going to happen now is you might be released from the car, or you might be taken downtown somewhere for processing. That
Mm-hmm.
there's several different scenarios, and that and what potentially could be the mitigation.
That seems like such an important lesson for a whole bunch of autistic people who I'm likely find themselves in those situations quite often, because it is very daunting, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to imagine knowing the right thing to do if you've not been able to practice that for this population.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, the police are not necessarily trained to spot someone that might be on the spectrum versus inhibited by narcotics or drugs or something else. And so if they can't distinguish that, the way they're going to treat the person is not going to be what we want.
Exactly. Yeah, or someone who just might be intentionally uncooperative with the police or something, right? Yeah. I think so. The last thing that I'd like to talk with you about, and I already know the answer to this, but I think it's important for the viewers, especially out in Canada, because recently I've also heard from the Autism Canada Association, and as well as our universities out here. And our biggest thing, of course, with any kind of software being integrated in Canada, is the FIPA compliancy. Of course, in the States, you guys have the FERPA policies, and these are all, of course, about data collection. We have very strict rules about privacy impact assessments and things like that. So could you just tell us what is the situation like in terms of data collection? What kind of data is collected? And would you see this as something that people can confidently go through with and be able to get FIPA compliant
Yeah,
services for? Yeah.
so the system's HIPAA compliant in the U.S. today, and one of the key aspects that enables that is that we don't collect personally identifying information on the children through the treatment, and even for the adult, we don't collect their name, contact information beyond their email, and so. These rules will vary country to country, so we haven't done a deep assessment of Canadian compliance. We would love to have a reason to do that by finding some customers and working through those things. But but right now, the information we collect is not integrated with any other systems. We use it merely to report back to the family or the caregiver on what the results were, and we try to minimize how much personally identifying information we collect so that it doesn't fall under the same amount of rigor and scrutiny.
Mm-hmm. That's good, and I look forward to seeing this more broadly applied in Canada as well. It's an amazing program.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to show everyone.
No, thank you very much for taking the time to give us a tour around Floreo here, Vijay, and it was wonderful, wonderful talking with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. Bye-bye.